Hello, mathematicians. So we are on Unit 6. We are on Day 2, solving a quadratic equation, Method 2, by completing the square, and page 4 of our packet. So let's first start with this question here. It says, why is x squared plus 8x plus 16 an example of a perfect squared trinomial? So the hint they give us is to factor it. So let's just go right ahead and do that. And since it's a trinomial, we're going to use the Xbox method. And 16 will go on top, 8 on the bottom. Two factors that multiply to 16 but add to 8. That's 4 and 4. I'm going to put those back in. And we're going to group. And we're going to pull out x as the common factor here. And 4 as the common factor between 4x and 16. If you notice, these are the same. So I'm going to put these two together. So we're left with x plus 4 times x plus 4. And if you're looking at this, well, this is saying x plus 4 times x plus 4. Well, it's really just multiplying x times 4 by itself twice. So therefore, I could say this is x plus 4 squared. Okay. Therefore, going back to the question here, can now answer it saying that why is this an example of a perfect squared trinomial? Well, the perfect square trinomial because the factored result will result in a no, I'm spelling this wrong. Results in a binomial squared. Okay, and we're going to look at a lot of this today. We're going to be looking at a lot of perfect squared trinomials where the factor would result in a binomial multiplying by itself twice. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go through this step by step. So today we're going to look at solving the quadratic equation by completing the square, but there are quite a few steps that go into it, okay? So the first thing they want to see is the equation standard form? Well, if we're looking at our equation to the right, that answer is yes. So there's really nothing I'm going to have to do there. Okay, the second part is saying rearrange the equation. Get the C number, the constant, by itself on the right side of the right-hand side. So inverse operation. So I'm moving this over. Essentially, I'm taking the C and I'm moving it over to the other side of the equation. Well, if I'm moving something, inverse operation, this is adding 14. I'm going to have subtract 14 from both sides. And I'm going to be left with 2x squared minus 12x equals negative 14. Okay, this gets canceled out over here. The second thing it's telling me to do is there a GCF? Well, let's see. 2, negative 12, and negative 14. Yes, there is. The GCF here is 2. Okay, so then they're asking you to divide it out. So I'm going to divide 2. And then we are left with x squared minus 6x equals negative 7. Okay, I'm going to move this up just a tad. Can I move it up? Hold on. Okay. All right, moving along. Number 3 says complete the square. So there's quite a few parts here. So let's go through each one. It says identify the b. Okay, which is negative 6. Then they're telling you take b divided by 2 and square it and add that to both sides. Okay, so x squared minus 6x. Then I'm going to add the negative, take the b term, which is negative 6, divided by 2 and square it. And I'm going to add that to both sides. Oh, we're going to fit this. Okay. And then it says, rewrite this will form a perfect squared trinomial. Rewrite the expression as a perfect squared trinomial. Okay. So then I'm going to have x squared minus 6x plus, well, negative 6 divided by 2 gives me negative 3. And then if I square negative 3, I'm going to have 9, positive 9. So that means I'm also adding 9 to negative 7, which gives me 2, positive 2. Simplify and letter D, simplify the number on the right side of the equation, which we did, okay? All right, so now I'm going to keep going. Now it says, before we get to 4, this is actually what we do. You want to be able to factor this, right? Because now we're looking to solve for x. Well, if we're going to solve for x, and I see I have a trinomial, I could do an x box here. But if you notice, right, in an earlier equation, in our earlier example above, we're really just looking at that last number, your c term. And if you know if it's a perfect square, you're really just doing x minus 3 times x minus 3 is equal to 2. Let's see if you can really know that's a 3. Right, because negative 3 times negative 3 would give us positive 9. If you add them together, it'll give you negative 6. Okay, and then I could essentially say, well, x minus 3 squared is equal to 2. Right? Now it's telling you take the square root of both sides. Oops. All right, so now we are here. Square root of both sides. Okay? Now, the square root actually undoes the squaring. So on the left, we're going to be left with x minus 3 equals, now the square root of 2 is actually an irrational number, so we're going to leave it as square root of 2. However, the answer would be positive or negative the square root of 2. Okay? Side note over here, let's just think about that for a second. If I were to ask you what was negative 3 squared, you would tell me 9. And if I said what was 3 squared, you would also tell me 9. So if I ask you what the square root of 9 is, right, what two numbers multiplied by itself, or what number multiplied by itself would give me 9, well, I could say it's either positive 3, or I can even say it's negative 3. Because either of them, if I square, it's still going to give me 9. So when we're going back to problem over here, when we are taking a square root of a number, we kind of want to say, well, either going to be a positive answer or a negative answer. And then since they're asking us to solve for x, we're looking to get x by itself. So we're going to have to add 3 to both sides. Okay, and then we would have x is equal to 3 plus or minus square root of 2. That would be our answer. All right. We're going to have you try the next page, page 5. I'll do one more with you. Okay, how about we do, we could do the first one. Okay, so let's look at number 1. First step was to see is in standard form. It's not a standard form, but if you're looking at the next part where it says rearrange so that the C term's on the other side, that's exactly where we are right now. Okay? The next step is telling you to take the B term and divide it by 2, square that number, and add it to both sides. So we are left with x squared plus 8x plus, I'm taking the B term, which is 8. I'm going to divide it by 2, and I'm going to square it. I'm going to add that to both sides. Okay? And then I'm going to simplify, so I have x squared plus 8x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Square that would give me 16. And then 16 plus, or negative 6 plus 16 will then end us with 10. And then if I were to factor this, I'm going to have x plus 4, x plus 4 equals 10, right? And then I could essentially say x plus 4 squared is equal to 10. I want to take the square root of both sides. So then we have x plus 4 equals positive or negative 10. And I'm solving for x, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Oops. And we're going to be left with x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 10. And that is your answer. All right, ladies, you should try 2, 3, 4 on your own. I will give you a hint. The 5th problem on this sheet is a throwback. For those that requested some throwbacks, I added into this packet.